Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, a lot to talk about today, believe me. But there's no question now. We are now facing, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, a communist insurgency here, a political communist insurgency within the United States of America. And again, I want to thank everyone who showed up yesterday here at a very special event sponsored by Kelly Financial Services. I want to thank Kelly Financial for sponsoring it, and I want to thank all of you who showed up. It was wonderful to meet you, shake hands, take pictures. And as I said to the wonderful people of Kuhner country who attended our event here at iHeart in a studio right near where I do my show, I had the opportunity yesterday to speak, obviously on background, with several Trump administration officials. I can't say more than that, but there was clearly a conversation took place. I can just say this. And let me tell you exactly now where the Trump administration is, what they think about the state of the country, and what they now think the greatest threat within the United States is coming from. President Trump and his inner circle, as I told the wonderful crowd yesterday here at iHeart, is now resigned to the fact, and this is a massive story, that Zoran Mamdani will become the next mayor of New York. There is another televised debate tonight. I believe it's the last one, between Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa, the Republican challenger. However, if you look at the opinion polls, Mamdani is now up by 13 points, double digits. He is starting to widen his lead. He is pulling away in the race, barring some kind of a massive gaffe or a huge self-inflicted error on his part. Mamdani is going to coast to victory. It will actually be a landslide. Now, many of you are going to say, okay, Jeff. Okay, I mean, sure, Mamdani, a self-avowed socialist, in many ways a communist, clearly a communist. Okay, he'll be a bad mayor. It'll be bad for New York. But whoa, what do you mean a communist insurgency? And the Trump administration now is convinced Mamdani will win, and with his victory, they believe now this clearly represents the culmination of 25 years of the march of the radical left to the commanding heights of power within the National Democratic Party and within the Democratic Party, not just in New York, but across the country. And if you look at Mamdani himself, Mamdani now is increasingly becoming the face of the Democrats. He is providing the shock troops, the base of the Democratic Party. And on Monday, this was just a couple days ago, Mamdani held a massive rally in New York City. And as they openly said, and this is now with the full-throated support of Elizabeth Warren, of Bernie Sanders, of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In fact, she was there with him. She's been with him on the campaign trail. They openly now said, and these are their words, quote, "Our time has come." And what they mean by that is that the Marxist wing of the Democratic Party, the far left socialist wing of the Democratic Party, it is now their party. And what was even more chilling is the speech that was given by New York State Attorney General, now indicted New York State Attorney General Letitia James. She goes by Tish James, who spoke before Mamdani at this event on Monday. And she vowed that she would continue to go up against Trump, that she's not going to be deterred by these mortgage fraud charges that have been pressed or leveled against her, and that she was calling, by the way, for a rising up of socialists, progressives, communists, across the entire country. And as she stood there with her clenching her fist, calling for resistance, calling for revolution, calling for ceaseless opposition to Trump and the Trump administration, I have to tell you, it's Venezuela. It's Castro's Cuba. It's now the communists believe that they're going to take over New York, that this will now become a communist stronghold, that Mamdani, by the way, has openly said he would make Letitia James his police commissioner. So not only are they circling the wagons around her, but literally they want to give her a key position, the position over the police in New York. And this is a woman, by the way, who has said repeatedly that the police are racist, that the police need to be defunded, that the police now are a threat and a menace to people in New York City. And he's going to make her, who now has these indictments hanging over her head, as the next police commissioner should he win? Ay, ay, ay. Now, getting back to President Trump, this is now the way he sees the country, and I don't disagree with him. I think he's completely right. The Mamdani victory will now be the culmination of the left now seizing power within the Democratic Party. They will now become the heart and soul of the party. Mamdani will become the poster child of the party. And the Marxists, the communists, will have not just taken over the financial center, definitely of the United States, arguably of the world. But think about now what Trump is facing. He is facing now a confederacy of cities and states that are lined up in an insurrection against him. You have a communist like Mamdani who is now going to seize power in New York. You essentially here in Boston have a communist in Michelle Wu. She's basically Mamdani in pantsuits. And she's now running Boston. You have that crazy Marxist mayor, Brandon Johnson, who now is running the city of Chicago. Okay? Chicago. You now have the crazy pro-Antifa Marxist mayor of Portland, who now is completely taking over Portland and running it into the ground. You have Karen Bass, who literally was a former communist guerrilla who trained with Fidel Castro's forces in Cuba to help implement a Marxist revolution in America and around the world. And that's now the mayor of LA. And so what Trump is now going to be facing, led by Mamdani, backed by AOC, by Bernie, by Warren, by Ilhan Omar, by Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, the squad, is an internal communist insurgency. And this means you're going to see more attacks on ICE, more defiance on Trump's mass deportations. You're going to see now more defiance of federal law, more violence, more crime. And Trump, whether he does it sooner or later, is going to have no choice but to invoke the Insurrection Act. It's not a question of whether he wants to or not, because Mamdani now has thrown down the gauntlet. He has now explicitly said, when we take over New York City, this is now what he plans to do. And I want you to think about this objectively. He wants a $30 an hour minimum wage. This will literally bankrupt businesses all across New York. He wants universal child care. He wants free buses. He is calling for the abolishment of private property. He wants government-run grocery stores. And by the way, everywhere that's been tried, that leads to scarcity and food lines. He wants to defund the police. That's why he wants Letitia James as his police commissioner. He has said that the police in New York are systemically racist. And so if there is a 911 call, he doesn't want police officers to answer. I swear to you, he wants social workers to answer. He is calling now for prisons to be abolished, i.e., let criminals roam free on the streets, empty out the prisons. He has vowed to chase the billionaires out of New York. That means Wall Street will be chased out. The major corporations, hedge funds, banks, these are tons of jobs, massive investment out of New York. He wants to impose the highest corporate tax rate in the country in New York City. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to President Donald Trump. A lot of this now is starting to come out in public, obviously. He sees that Mamdani looks unstoppable at this point, and we will have a communist mayor of New York. Listen now to President Trump. This was at a meeting with Argentina's president, Javier Milei, in the White House, and he went after Elizabeth Warren because of her full-throated endorsement for the communist Zoran Mamdani. Roll cut 20, Mike.
We're confident that President Milei is going to do well. We've been criticized by a couple of American Peronists, like Senator Warren. She and
it's a compliment. Yeah. She has no idea what she's doing. She's a nasty, horrible senator. Go ahead. Other than that, I like her very much.
Yeah, and she and her protege in New York, Mamdani, who I don't even think he's a Peronist. I think he's more the communist chauvinismo. So we stand with the president and what he stands for and the hope for the Argentinian people.
Now, obviously, a lot of this was directed towards Milei, and they think he's, the future of Argentina. Obviously, he's done very well, bringing down inflation and trying to tame the socialism that has destroyed Argentina. But I don't want to get too caught up in what's going on in Argentina. The point is, that was Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, speaking along with Trump. They believe that Mamdani, and they're right, is an admirer of Hugo Chavez, of Chavismo, which is the Venezuelan-style socialism, that he will turn New York into Caracas, where crime is rampant, where there is widespread misery, where the middle class was destroyed under Chavez and now Maduro, where everything is quote-unquote free, but the services suck, because that's what happens when you have socialism. It just spreads misery everywhere. It impoverishes your entire country. It doesn't make things better. It makes everything infinitely worse. And so what Trump now realizes is that with the victory of Mamdani, the most important city, the wealthiest, the financially most consequential city in the United States will fall to a Marxist Muslim militant. And that Mamdani is now openly preparing, and he said it yesterday, again, that he will oppose Trump at every turn, that he will make New York the strongest sanctuary city in the country, that he will not allow ICE to enter into New York, that he will use every legal and political weapon at his disposal to block ICE, to block Trump, to protect criminal illegal aliens. And what is even more, to me, very disturbing, Mamdani is openly pro-Hamas. He's not just pro-Palestinian, he is pro-Hamas. In other words, he's pro-Islamic terrorism. He refuses to criticize Hamas. He refuses to call for Hamas to disarm and disband. He vowed again yesterday that if Benjamin Netanyahu visits New York City, under what authority, I don't know, but he says he will arrest Netanyahu and send him to the International Criminal Court, which, by the way, we're not even a signatory to, in order to be tried for quote-unquote war crimes. This is a man who is a vicious Jew hater. He is an anti-Semite. He is deeply anti-American. He now will have Sharia law in City Hall should he become elected. So this is what New Yorkers are on the verge of electing. And as I told the wonderful group yesterday who attended the talk at iHeart, the event that we had here at iHeart Media, you know, my ancestors, as you know, are from Croatia. And you can say whatever you want about Croatians. But like most people in Eastern Europe, under the communist bloc, communism was rammed down their throats through the barrel of a gun, i.e. the conquering Red Army after 1945. What's New York's excuse? Who the hell votes for communism? And wherever it's been tried, literally, I can name you country after country after country after country after country. I don't care if it's in Europe. I don't care if it's in Africa. I don't care if it's in the Middle East. I don't care if it's in Latin America. I don't care if it's in Asia. I don't care where it's ever been tried. It has been a disaster. A disaster. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. I want to go to the calls as quickly as I can. So let me just quickly wrap it up, and then I want to go to the phone lines. So this is what my sources now and take this to the bank, what the Trump administration now have basically said. Over the next couple of weeks, really the next couple of months, President Trump, J.D. Vance, and his inner circle are expecting a Mamdani victory, and it will be a big Mamdani victory. It won't even be a close election. Now, with Mamdani, he will become, as I said, the poster child now for the Democratic Party, the new communist Marxist Democratic Party. Mamdani is vowing, along with AOC backing him, and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and Obama, and that is the key person, that the radical left is going to wage ceaseless resistance against Trump. They are going to block his attempts to use ICE agents to deport criminal illegal aliens. They are going to activate their street militias, i.e. Antifa, Black Lives Matter. You are going to see more violence on the streets, not just in New York. You're going to see it in Boston. You're going to see it in Chicago. You're going to see it in Portland. You're going to see it in L.A. In other words, you look at many of America's leading cities, and they will have full-blown Marxist communist mayors backed by radical left Democrats, say Pritzker in Illinois or Newsom in California or Healy, for example, here in Massachusetts. And so Trump now realizes that, you're going to see much more crime. You're going to see much more rioting. You're going to see ceaseless insurrection and resistance to federal authority, to federal immigration law, to federal enforcement of immigration law. And so he will have to invoke the Insurrection Act. This is an open secret now in the White House. The question now is not if, but when. When is going to be the right time for him to do it? And there is a debate within the administration. Stephen Miller, his top advisor, deputy chief of staff, wants to do it now. He says, don't wait. If you have to do it now. You have others, and they're very well-intentioned, who say, no, you still don't have enough support among the American people to take such a drastic action. Let the violence in these cities play out more. Not that they want violence, but that the media is not showing the American people what's really happening in Chicago, what's really happening in Portland, what's really happening in L.A., under Mamdani, what's really going to happen, the explosion that's going to happen in New York. And so public opinion is not ready yet for him to invoke the Insurrection Act. And so they're saying, it's like a game of chess. You need to wait a little longer and let the situation sadly get a little worse before the public would then accept him going essentially the nuclear option politically, invoking the Insurrection Act. Now, as I said, and by the way, and the Trump team is aware of this, as I said to the wonderful audience yesterday, when Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, and it will be done sometime next year, the Democrats are going to go insane. I mean apoplectic. I mean berserk. I mean they're going to take it to the streets. Schumer is going to lose his mind. Hakeem Jeffries is going to lose his mind. As I told the audience, I think Pelosi actually may get a heart attack. I mean, literally, it's like, she just dropped dead. Look at this. And it's just, she's going to get a conniption. Mamdani is going to freak out. AOC is they're going to demagogue this. They're going to tell their people, take it to the streets. This is a dictatorship. This is authoritarianism. This is Hitler. This is Putin. This is fascism. This is blah, 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 blah. You know what they're going to say. And Trump then is going to have to break this insurrection. And he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. And he's going to make the election, I'm telling you, on the radical communist Democrats. Not on his first terms in office. His first 2 years in office. Not the first half of his second term. It will be a referendum on the border, on ICE, on mass deportations, on the Democrats doing everything in their power to block federal law enforcement from implementing the will of the people and deporting these criminal, illegal aliens out of our cities, out of our states, and out of our country. Now, I believe that Trump will break the Democrats on this issue. Personally, I believe that Mamdani spells the doom and the death eventually of the Democratic Party. Look, what Mamdani and AOC and Bernie Sanders and Brandon Johnson and Pritzker and Newsom and Karen Bass and those crazies in Portland and in Oregon, what they represent, I'm choosing my words very carefully, is the United States of Venezuela. New York is going to be turned into Caracas. That's what you're going to get under Mamdani. And that's what you're getting now in Portland. You go to Portland, it resembles a third world hellhole. You go to many parts of Chicago now. The crime is so bad. The lawlessness, the anarchy, the drugs, the tren de Aragua. Look, Rod Blagojevich recently came out, a Democrat, former Democrat, came out and said, I don't recognize Chicago anymore. It's a killing zone. Your car gets carjacked. Businesses are getting vandalized. Gangs are out of control. They're targeting ICE. They're more interested in attacking ICE officers and firebombing ICE vehicles and ramming them and shooting at them than they are in going after murderers and rapists and sex traffickers. Chicago is becoming a third world hellscape. Not completely, but neighborhood by neighborhood by neighborhood, it's getting worse. So this is going to be the issue that we're going to be fighting over for the entire midterms of 2026. And Trump is already phrasing, and I think he's onto this. He's ahead of the curve. We're not facing anymore the so-called democratic socialists. Number one, we're a republic. Obviously, we're a constitutional republic. But, we also have a democratic republic, i.e. we have, elections. And so we're already a constitutional republic / democracy. So what Mamdani is a socialist, a self-avowed socialist. He's really a communist. And I don't know if you saw his act yesterday on Fox News. I managed to catch it. His interview with Martha McCallum. I don't think, by the way, she did a very good job, but let that go. All this guy does is smile. And then he's, to me, the definition of a snake oil salesman. If you want to see, that term that was made popular over 150 years ago, what a snake oil salesman is, it's Mamdani. He's got that slippery smile. And his attitude is, he's this average guy, and he's going to give you socialism, he's going to give you communism, and we're all going to have a good time. And so you say the most vile, destructive, dangerous things, but just say it with a smile. That's all this guy does is smile. So we're gonna defund the police, smile. The cops are racist, smile. We're going to tax predominantly white neighborhoods and essentially chase them out of New York, smile. We're going to defend bloodthirsty anti-Semitic terrorists, smile, i.e. Hamas. We are going to chase wealth and investment out of New York and essentially destroy New York as the financial center of America, smile. We're going to release criminals onto the streets, smile. We're going to have food lines and bread lines and scarcity, because socialism always leads to scarcity. Smile. He's deceptive. He's a liar. He's manipulative. And he's now preying upon the affordability crisis in New York by offering them the fantasy of socialism and communism. And the idiots in New York, the liberals, the progressives, the leftists, think that somehow they can get communism right. That you just got to keep trying it and trying it and trying it and trying it, and eventually they'll get it right. Mamdani now represents the complete takeover of the Democratic Party by the Marxist communist wing. And I got to say this, and it pains me to say it, but I got to give the devil his due. Bernie Sanders spent 30 years in the salt mines, and he chipped away year after year, year after year. AOC, how many years now? She's been chipping away. Elizabeth Warren, how many years? Chipping away. 617-266-6868. Okay, very, very quick, because the lines are jammed. I want to go right to the phone lines. Listen now to President Trump. Again, a lot of what I'm telling you is what they're saying in private. This is part of his inner circle. Some of it, though, is starting to come out in public, obviously. Listen now to Trump saying, don't be fooled. Mamdani is not even a socialist. He is a full-blown communist. And when he wins, I am not giving New York a penny in federal aid or federal assistance. I'm going to give U.S. taxpayer dollars to somebody who's going to flush it right down a rat hole and use it to destroy one of the greatest cities in the United States over my dead body. Roll cut 34, Mike.
Then we have a communist who's 33 years old, doesn't know a damn thing. Practically, he's never worked a day in his life. And he sort of caught on, right? And I'm not going to send a lot of money to New York. I don't have to. The money comes all through the White House. And if they're going to be sending us stupid policies, communist policies, which is proven for thousands of years doesn't work. We don't have to prove it again. We're not going to ruin one of our great cities, because we'll make that great. We will clean up the crime in about 30 days. Took 12 days to do Washington, D.C., so New York is bigger.
So basically, Trump is saying, look, we can clean up the crime, we can clean up the drugs, we can get rid of the illegal aliens, we can literally make, a la Giuliani, the way Giuliani did it in the 1990s and early 2000s. We could make New York an incredibly secure, safe, peaceful, prosperous city again. But if you elect this guy, forget it. And he's right. Every time it's been tried. Every time. And I'm not saying it's, how do I say this? Well, it just doesn't work. I don't know. It's stagnant. It's not effective. No, I mean, it's been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster. So, and New Yorkers are going to vote this in? Now, look, I don't wish ill upon any American. I really don't. But I'm sorry. They can't say they were warned. They can't say, well, nobody warned us, because they're being warned again and again and again and again and again. And so I'm sorry. Part of me says you deserve it. If your city goes under, you have no one else to blame but yourself. 617-266-6868. All right, JT in Boston. You're going to kick us off, JT. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Jeff, I just have to say, related to communism, the origins of communism. It's the Bolsheviks, the banking system, the Talmudic Jews, and I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-tyrannical banking. And that's what we exist in. General Patton said in World War II, one of the only ones, we defeated the wrong enemy. And I believe that the Holodomor is still occurring based on all of that. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just observe that occurring. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, look, you're right about communism being the greatest system of mass murder that ever has existed. There's no question about that. There's no question. And people will say, well, Jeff, what do you say about Hitler? And I go, well, Hitler was very bad. But remember, Hitler was also a National Socialist. So he was part of that socialist tradition. He just stressed racialism more than, say, international class warfare or internationalism, as Stalin and Lenin did. But look, no, JT, look, Mamdani is anti-Semitic. He's anti-Jewish. To me, this whole idea of communism being a Jewish conspiracy, I think, is completely false. Lenin was not Jewish. Stalin was not Jewish. Castro's not Jewish. Chavez isn't Jewish. Mao wasn't Jewish. I could go on and on. So, and even Karl Marx, the originator of communism, yes, he was technically a Jew, but he hated his Jewishness. He was a self-hating Jew. He hated the Talmud. He hated Zionism. He hated faithful, practicing Orthodox Jews. He thought religion was the opium of the people. And so this idea that somehow communism is a Jewish conspiracy, it's a lie. It's not true. I'm just telling you, it's not. And look, again, we're going to blame the Jews for what? Because a militant Muslim Marxist, a pro-Palestinian militant Muslim Marxist, whose mother is a communist Muslim from the communist hotbed in Indiana, and this guy was born in Uganda, who has a Muslim wife who basically was, pretty much in a burqa. She's in the hijab all the time, who is vowing that should he win, he eventually wants to just have not just Sharia law in City Hall, but to eventually have in New York what you have in Minneapolis and in Dearborn, whereby you have the Muslim call to prayer blasted over loudspeakers, who has the Jewish community in New York rightly petrified that this man is now, a couple of weeks away from becoming the mayor of New York. So, I don't understand why there's this push always to blame Jews when you're dealing with, say, an obvious, anti-Semitic Muslim Marxist like Mamdani, to use him as an example. So, no, I don't think communism is a Jewish conspiracy. And I think if you look at, most places where communism has taken root or was put in power, it wasn't because of the Jews. It was non-Jews. No, the wickedness of communism, if you really want to get to the heart of it, is It combines all the 7 deadly sins. That's what's so evil about it. But it converts them into virtues. You see? And that's Mamdani. I'm just using him as an example. But that's Lenin, that's Stalin, that's Mao, that's Castro, I could go on and on. So envy is a deadly sin. All they want to do is take someone else's money and property. Greed is a deadly sin. All they want to do is amass more money and more power for themselves. Pride is a deadly sin. Have you seen anyone more quote unquote narcissistic than this guy, Mamdani? Or these cult of personalities that you have in all these communist societies? The cult of Lenin, the cult of Stalin, the cult of Mao. Look at North Korea, fat man. You know, a little rocket man, chubby, fat rocket man. His portrait everywhere. So instead of the cross and Jesus, it's always their portrait. It's this deadly sin of pride. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I can go through all 7 deadly sins for you. What I'm saying is that's communism. It appeals to the worst part of our nature, to the deadliest, most evil part of our nature. And that's why, to me, Solzhenitsyn said, it's the greatest of all heresies. That if you really want to understand communism, it is the greatest heresy against Christianity and against religion in general. And that's why in his brilliant, brilliant book, I'll never forget this, and he's right. It's not fashionable to talk like this, but he's completely right. Where he said, you really want to know communism, Marxism? It's Satanism. It's not just evil. It's not just a cancer. It's not just a barbaric, dangerous, destructive ideology. It literally is as close to Lucifer on earth as you can get. It hates the family. It hates religion. It hates God. It's not just godless. It hates God. It hates countries. It hates nations. It hates individual rights and individual dignity. And, look at this scumbag, Mamdani. The guy wants to, his words, globalize the Intifada. The Intifada was what they did on October 7th. The Intifada is what that crazy Islamic militant did at Manchester at that synagogue. That's what, when they say globalize the Intifada, that's what they mean. Now, how sick do you have to be? You come from Uganda. You're barely an American citizen. You're a 33-year-old punk who's never held an honest job his entire life. The guy was a state assemblyman. That's it. That's it. His mother is a multi-millionaire famous director from India. He lives in a multi-million-dollar swanky apartment in Manhattan. He's what do you call him? A TFB, a trust fund baby. He was born with a silver, this guy Mamdani, the man of the people. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He went to one of the most expensive private high schools in New York. And this son of a, this SOB is going around saying, yeah, I'm for the working class. I care about taxi drivers and their medallions. And why isn't this a ticket to the middle class? The way Lenin screeched about the workers before he murdered all of them and he miserated all of them. So that's who Mamdani is. And I agree with Brian. He messaged me maybe 20 minutes ago. And he said, Jeff, a man that always smiles nonstop, no matter what he says, that's the sign of a sociopath. And I'm telling you, watch Mamdani, watch him in his interviews, even just turn the volume off and just observe him. You're like, this guy's a sociopath. He smiles and smiles and smiles and smiles, yet he says the most heinous things out of his mouth. And New York is going to fall for this fraud? JT, I'm telling you, man, they elect him, we got problems. And look, I'm going to say to all of you what I told my wife, what I tell my closest friends. Okay? I'm in the confessional now. And I challenge anybody in this great audience, and I'm not saying this in a combative way. Please, as Charlie Kirk would say, prove me wrong. Show me anywhere. I don't care. Any country, any time in history where communism has taken root and it was defeated by nonviolent means. In other words, where communism has taken hold, where has it ever been defeated except by the use of violence? I'm not arguing for violence. I'm explaining to you historically. Once it look at Venezuela now. They're trying to overthrow Maduro. There, Maria Machado has come out and said there's only one way to overthrow Maduro. We got to use arms. We have to get weapons and we have to take it to the streets and overthrow these dictators. The Maduro dictatorship. Where has it ever been overthrown peacefully? Even when the Cold War collapsed, they had to take it to the streets. When the Soviet Union fell, they took it to the streets. When communism fell in Eastern Europe, they took it to the streets. So what I'm trying to tell you is, why would we go down this dark path? Now, America is an incredible country. We've done things no other countries have been able to do. Maybe we can be the first in human history to defeat communism once it's taken root without using violence. I pray to God. But look at them. They get more militant, more violent, more dangerous by the day. Chicago is worse today than it was yesterday when it comes to these anti-ICE riots, or Portland, or wait till Mamdani gets in power. So that's why Trump is right. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. He's going to have to invoke the Insurrection Act. And then let's keep our fingers crossed. The one thing you don't do is go down the road of either communism or Nazism. Because once you go down that road, you are asking for big trouble. And I'm sorry, but if we were a third world country, a poor country, an immiserated country, an illiterate country, I could somehow understand the appeal of communism. I mean, I'm against it. I think it's a destructive, frankly, barbaric ideology. But okay, people are very poor. People are absolutely desperate. People don't know, they haven't been educated. They're illiterate. They don't know much about history. What's our excuse? Seriously, what's our excuse? 617, JT, thank you for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go to Mo on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Mo, and welcome.
Hey, Kuhner, man.
Hi, Mo.
Been a long time.
Welcome.
I worked at Indian Point Nuclear Plant for years. It's shut down now. And before it shut down, it used to be 50% of New York City's electricity. Now they're claiming was 24%. It's going to shut down. There's be no electricity. It will be rebuilt, but it will be going to people like Elon Musk. Before then, though, they will run out of electricity in New York, and that's how Trump will end up going in. It's going to be right out of Escape from New York, the movie.
I think they're going to have, I agree with you. I think they're going to have all kinds. First of all, energy costs are going to explode in New York and here, by the way. There's no question. This idiot wants to get New York off of fossil fuels completely. He wants windmills. He wants solar energy, wind and solar to power a city like New York. Like, is he on crack cocaine? So, and we're going to feel the effects. New York affects the entire Northeast. I know in Boston, we're the financial and cultural and in some ways the political center, obviously, of New England. But, New York affects us. I mean, they're just much bigger than we are. That's just a fact. And so you're right. New York is going to run out of electricity. New York is going to run out of power. But New York is also going to run out of money. By the time you start adding up free buses, free subway, free childcare. And by the way, the free buses, you know what that's going to lead to? I mean, I don't want to get too off topic, Mo, because I want to stay exactly on your point. But You start giving out quote unquote free buses. You know what that, like, think about it. Just anybody gets on the bus. Just anybody. Well, what drug addicts are going to get on the bus. Homeless people are going to get on the bus, especially in the wintertime when it's cold. Look, if I'm a homeless person, if you're a homeless person, Mo, you're like, oh, it's freezing. I'm freezing my ass off. Oh, hey, there's the bus. Get on the bus for free and just stay on the bus all day, all night. Just stay on that bus as it goes back because it's hot and it's like it's warm in the bus. You're going to have drug addicts take over these buses. You're going to have homeless people take over these buses. You're going to have filth. You're going to have crime. You're going to have, you're going to have fights break out. It's going to be a nightmare. Free subways, government-run grocery stores. The city is financially going to go poof. It's going to go bankrupt. Who's going to pay the taxes? You've chased everybody out. You've chased all the investors out. You've chased the middle class out. He's targeting the white neighborhoods. That's another thing. He's openly making an appeal on race that he wants to tax white neighborhoods. I don't mean just corporate America or big corporations. I'm talking middle, working class, predominantly white neighborhoods. He wants to break them so white people flee New York. Okay. You want to racially purge? This is racial ethnic cleansing. And by the way, he wants to hit the Jews hard. When he talks about white neighborhoods, he also means, wink, wink, Jewish neighborhoods. So he wants to ethnically, racially cleanse New York by using the tax system. So there's going to be no money for anything. And then there's going to be no power. You're completely right. And the lights are going to go off. And I think you're right. I think Trump then is going to say to the country, and I shouldn't invoke the Insurrection Act? Like, you want to see this city you want to what, collapse? As you put it, like Escape from New York, like out of a Hollywood movie? And I think Trump then is going to make his move. But by then, Mo, can you pick up the pieces? Let me ask you this. Can New York survive, 1 or 2 terms of Mamdani? Look at London. And by the way, Mamdani said his hero is Sadiq Khan in London, that mayor. London is now a third world city. It's a crap hole. I can't say the word that Trump uses. That's what London has become. Sadiq Khan in less than 10 years has destroyed one of the greatest cities in the history of the world. And Mamdani says he wants to emulate Khan. So my question to you is, can New York survive Mamdani? What say you, Mo?
They're going to step right in. Best example I can give you is when Mount St. Helens blew, they were talking about bringing in nuclear submarines to give power to the Washington, Oregon area because they had a severe drain of power then. And it'll be an easy excuse where, let's put it this way, most people in New York will be glad to see American troops in New York City. And you're talking a huge army. You might even see international. Don't worry about Wall Street. They're going to move to Florida because that can all be done electronically. And
no, Mo, look, very perceptive call. Very perceptive. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quickly, I just want to read this on Messenger. This is from Larry in Arkansas, and he makes an absolutely brilliant point. Sorry, my friend, but this isn't 40 years ago. Today, you can learn anything on anyone in an instant. New Yorkers know exactly who and what Mamdani is. And they're choosing him as the anti-Trump mayor. And they now have to live with it. Brilliant. I think he's dead on. They're going for the most militant leftist, the most hardline communist, the most far left, Democrat or socialist or communist Marxist that they can find, because he's the most anti-Trump that you can get of anybody available. And that's why, by the way, AOC is becoming a superstar in the Democratic Party. She can crush Schumer in a primary if she wants. It's why Bernie now is basically the leader of the Democratic Party. And I could go on. Michelle Wu is so popular with the crazy moonbats. She's going to literally win re-election in November, uncontested. Uncontested. So she's an anti-Trump mayor. They'll love her. Mamdani is the most anti-Trump mayor. He's almost the antithesis of Trump. They love him. And I can go city by city by city. So the cities are turning communist while the rest of the country is going conservative. Laura in Carver. Thanks for holding, Laura, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call
My
this
pleasure.
morning.
My
I
pleasure,
appreciate the time. Jeff, I've been watching this New York election cycle now since the very beginning. And I've been watching all the pieces on the chessboard move around from Adams to Cuomo to Mandani and Sliwa. Now, Sliwa is the Republican candidate. And if Trump, in my opinion, Jeff, and I'd like your opinion, truly loved and cared about New York, then he would be putting on the fight mode to save New York. However, he hasn't done a thing to help Curtis Sliwa. And everyone says, oh, well, Curtis would be doing a lot better if he took that red beret off. Well, that red beret represents public safety. And I believe Curtis Sliwa deserves, at the very least, 4 years. And if you don't like him, vote him out and put someone else in. But I also know if Bernie Kerik was still alive, he would be standing right alongside Rudy Giuliani, and he would be pushing the Jewish community and every other community in the boroughs to support Curtis. But they're ganging up on Curtis because, oh, he likes cats. Well, that's nice. The guy likes animals. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I grew up with Curtis Sliwa when he started the Guardian Angels. And as far as I'm concerned, Jeff, if I was on the transit system in New York and the Guardian Angels were floating around the system, I would feel very, very comfortable. I don't understand. And I saw this happen in Massachusetts with Jeff Deal. Jeff Deal's own party dumped on him. And Sliwa's own party is dumping on him. And this is why we have Maura Healey. I don't think Jeff Deal would have allowed 1 second to have police cruisers in Boston lit on fire. And I am really, really disgusted. What is the point now, Jeff, of being a registered Democrat or a Republican if the Republicans aren't going to fight for their candidate?
Laura, I wish I could disagree with you. I really do. Because I'd like to see a real, combative Republican Party. But you're completely right. Republicans are full of Judases. They love to stab their own. They live to stab their own. Look, let me just say this. If I had a show, if my show wasn't based out of Boston, but it was based out of New York City, I would have Curtis Sliwa on my show every single day. Every single day. He is the salvation of New York City. He is a good, decent man. He's, you're right, he started the Guardian Angels, which all they did was protect people on subways. Ooh, he's been fighting crime his entire career. He's not corrupt, quite the opposite. He's an honest man. He's an honest politician. He loves New York. He's a true New York patriot. He loves that city. I think he would be incredible for New York. I think he would turn around New York the way Rudy Giuliani did. He would bring about a renaissance in New York. And yet, no one is helping him. No one. The Republican Party's not helping him in New York. The Trump administration has basically kissed him off because they think he doesn't have a chance. So they don't want to expend political capital on him. And frankly, the New York media, and look, I blame Fox News. The New York Post, which is owned by the Murdochs, the Wall Street Journal, owned by the Murdochs, Fox, owned by the Murdochs, are telling every conservative in New York not to vote for Sliwa, but to vote for Andrew Cuomo. That the only guy, they say the only guy that can realistically have a chance to beat Mamdani is Cuomo. Well, Laura, the problem is Cuomo is corrupt as they come. He's a disgraced former governor. Look at what he did during COVID. And how many elderly people he got, killed, massacred, because he allowed infected patients to go into these nursing homes. So he's deeply unpopular. Okay, this is a brilliant text. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, should we find it any surprise that the loyal devotees to the cult of the party of death, i.e. the modern Democrat Party, would vote for their own societal suicide and absolute demise? And don't you find it ironic that this is coming from the anti-God left? They won't bow their knee to the one true God on which this nation was founded and who gave them every liberty they now enjoy. But they'll gladly bow their knee to communism and to Allah, who will ultimately enslave them. As Voltaire once said, it is difficult to free fools from the chains that they revere. Well, I got to tell you, in New York, they love their chains. I'm not saying everybody, obviously. There's a lot of opposition to Mamdani. But clearly now, most Democrats, all these so-called progressives, quote unquote, Marxist socialists, they're going for him, and they're going for him in a big way. And he's promising them snake oil, and they're buying it hook, line, and sinker. So they think he's going to give them $30 an hour and free buses and free subway and free health care and free child care and government-run grocery stores. Like, basically, they think he's going to give them food for free. And he's going to just tax the rich, but somehow the rich are going to stay. He's going to soak all of these companies, but they're just going to stay and take it. And that by just, raising taxes on white neighborhoods and raising taxes on businesses and on corporations and on banks and blah, 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 that somehow this is going to pay for everything. Okay. Okay. If you believe that, you know what? I got a bridge in Brooklyn you may be interested in. Suzanne in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Suzanne, and welcome.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to point out what you were saying earlier about London. I was there just a couple of weeks ago. I was in London and Paris, and I was first more concerned about Paris. But I have to be honest with you, I really don't recommend it. I felt uncomfortable. I've never seen the ratio. I mean, you said it earlier. It's an Islamic state. It really is. And when I tell people, London has changed, because I've been to London a lot. I was just there probably maybe 3 years ago. And I have to tell you, I felt uncomfortable. I would say 90%, maybe 80% of the people there, if you weren't a tourist or, someone from England, were Islam and dressed in full burqas. And, these are in, the beautiful stores and, Selfridges and normal kind of store. I mean, everywhere. And I was sort of warned, no matter what you do, this is from my son and my partner, do not put anything on your phone about that. Don't say what you feel or, oh my gosh, there's so many of these kinds of people here, because you'll get in trouble. I don't even exactly know what that means, but...
No, there's a censorship law that they have in Britain now that if you criticize Islam or Muslims, you will be arrested and you'll spend a year in jail. So what your partner was trying to tell you is be careful. They don't even care if you're a tourist, whether you're an American citizen or a Canadian citizen or an Australian or whatever, a French citizen. If you go to London, if you go to Britain, and you say anything critical of Islam or Muslims, they will impose, there's a censorship law, and you could spend up to a year and I think a day in prison. So that's why they were saying don't put anything down on your phone. Don't post anything, because if you do, they're going to come after you. But anyway, keep going, Suzanne.
And I was with a friend who's a bit older than me. She's from Newport and is on the other side, liberal, and it said nothing. And she's basically lived there throughout her life. And we actually met a friend from Cyprus who joined us, who actually from Ireland has also lived in London. A very elegant woman. And finally at dinner, she said, "It's changed here. I'm not comfortable." And I looked at her and I said, I know, I believe you. And I looked at her like, okay, she kind of gets it. And it was the most, I couldn't wait to get out of there. And for me, who loves London, and, I feel that way about New York. I will only go to New York City for travel now, and I'll only go to London for work travel, for business. Maybe the countryside in London. And then I have to tell you, Paris, I was a little skeptical about Paris. Let me tell you, it was okay. There was a protest, but we knew to stay away from that side of the city. And I'm telling you, it wasn't the ratio. There were some people in burqas, but not full-on burqas. Maybe just covering the face or the neck area. It wasn't like that in Paris. London, I don't recommend it. I felt very, very uncomfortable, and I felt like I was in the minority as well as other English people. And I've heard that, but I did hear a statistic that many of the major cities in London the mayors are all Islamic.
Well,
I'm sure you
that's their plan. And Sadiq Khan said, if London falls, England falls. And so what they're doing now is, it's not just London, they're putting these Islamic mayors in other cities around Great Britain, but especially England. And so it's a concerted effort. And look, I urge everybody, it's on tape. That's how arrogant now they're getting. The Muslims of New York and the Muslims of the United States, and frankly of the Middle East, are putting everything they have behind Mamdani. And they're telling their people now, we are just weeks away from capturing New York. And remember, we've already forgotten about 9/11. I'm not saying you or us, but I mean the country. The Muslims have not. For them, 9/11 was just yesterday. And so they are now 24 years after they killed 3,000 Americans and brought down the Twin Towers. They are now going to put not just a Muslim in City Hall, but a militant Muslim, a pro-Hamas, pro-Islamist Muslim in City Hall. And so what they're telling everybody that will listen to them is, we are going to win the battle over 9/11. That's what they're telling everybody. And Mamdani is bragging, saying, I'm going to do exactly the way Sadiq Khan did it. I'm going to chase the Jews out of New York. I'm going to chase the white people out of New York. I'm going to flood it with Muslim migration. We are going to bring Sharia law piece by piece, first into City Hall itself, and eventually into Muslim predominant neighborhoods. And before you know it, New York will be ours. And it'll be like, we won 9/11. And the people of New York, who said never forget, are now going to allow their city to fall to someone who's calling for essentially an Islamic caliphate. That's Mamdani. It's unbelievable. If I said this to you 24 years ago, you would have said to me, I'm crazy. Honestly, I would have been driven off the air. You said, what? In 25 years? And as a Muslim fundamentalist, a Marxist Muslim is going to now be the mayor of New York, and they're going to be calling for Sharia law and the Muslim call for prayer? And they're openly going to talk about driving the Jews and the white people out of New York City? Now, and it's only going to get worse. It doesn't get better. So, yes, you will start to see many more burqas in New York. They better get used to it. Many more hijabs, and many more of these, no-go zones. And New York will fall. If we don't turn this around, New York will fall the way London has fallen. it is what it is. Now, we can stop it or we can bury our heads in the sand. Okay, let's go to Jimmy in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
When you saw his face, what did that face look like? His smirk. You know what he looked like, Jeff? I'm going to shock you. In the Bible, he is called the deceiver, the devil. That's what I saw. He's going to deceive these fools where they're going to follow him to their deaths. They're going to be raped. They're going to be murdered. The city will be burned in New York. Everything that the devil promises you is just to lure you to his den. And that's what he is. He's the face of evil we saw. And he's going to destroy it. Trump, like Mo said, they're going to have to bring in, I give it 3 weeks, they're going to have to bring in about 20 to 30,000 soldiers into that city. He's going to destroy it. He's here on a mission to destroy this country.
Jimmy, I got to tell you, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I wish I could disagree with you. I wish you were wrong, but you're not. And I think, look, he's a stealth jihadist. I think there's no question. And Jimmy, let me be even more frank with you and the whole audience. Yes, AOC was pivotal to launching Mamdani. There's no question. Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, they all put the squad. Ilhan Omar has put everything she had into Mamdani. By the way, they're now pushing this guy called Omar Fateh, Fateh. He is the Mamdani of Minneapolis, just like Mamdani, except he's from Somalia, not Uganda. He's from Somalia. But that's about it. He's a militant Marxist Muslim, literally in the mold of Mamdani. And Ilhan Omar is launching him. He's going to probably be the next mayor of Minneapolis. And he's now vowing it's not just going to be loudspeakers and the Muslim call to prayer in the Somali neighborhoods of St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's going to be all over Minneapolis, St. Paul. In fact, literally, I don't want to get too off track, but I just want to show you what's happening. You can take a look. I mean, if you want, I'll read you the quote. He spoke to a big gathering of Somalis in Minneapolis, and he said, I want you to know that if I become mayor, quote unquote, I will always put Somalia first. I will put Somalia and Somalis first. And they all got up and they started cheering wildly for him. Now, Ilhan Omar, by the way, has said that herself, that she's given speeches and said, I'm here to put Somalia and Somali first. She's a foreign agent. Just no question. So, no, but the real hand behind Mamdani, because remember, to run a race the way he's running, his face is everywhere in New York. He's on TV, television ads, radio ads, posters, the stuff on social media. So who's paying for this guy? You know, it's not these $5, $10, $20 donations. And I'll tell you who it is. It's the hand of Barack Hussein Obama. The guy that is really the godfather who's putting Mamdani and these other Muslim militants, Muslim Marxists in power, one by one by one by one, is Barack Obama. And he was also a stealth candidate. There's no question in my mind. And, you know, everybody knows what he famously said before the election of 2008. We are several weeks away from, quote unquote, fundamentally transforming America. And we all thought, and we were half right. Oh, he means a socialist transformation of America, a Marxist transformation of America. But no, he didn't just mean a socialist transformation. He meant a Muslim socialist transformation. That's the part now we're starting to finally wake up to. In other words, he just doesn't want to turn us into the USSA, the United Socialist States of America. That was always Obama's dream. But remember, his father, and everything goes back to his father. In fact, his autobiography, look, to be fair to the guy, he openly said it in his autobiography, Dreams of My Father. His father was not just a third world socialist, a Kenyan Marxist. He was a Kenyan Muslim Marxist. And that you said, my sympathies are with the Muslim world against Europe, against Christians, against Jews, and against the West. Remember, Obama was the one who helped try to nuke up the Iranians. Obama is the one that sent the Ayatollahs billions of dollars in cash. Obama, if we can remember, that was 13, 14 years ago. But do you remember the Arab Spring? Who put the Muslim Brotherhood in power in Egypt? Obama. Who supported ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria? Obama. Who put the Muslims in power in North Africa? Obama. So if we remember the Arab Spring, it was one Islamist government after another, and they were all brought to power under Obama's CIA. Who turned Libya into essentially an Al-Qaeda Islamist stronghold? Obama. And they overthrew Gaddafi. So what I'm saying is, if you look at Obama's presidency, now look, there were Republicans in Congress, there was a lot of resistance, so he was restrained, he had to be careful. It was still, 7, 8 years after 9/11. There was still a lot of anger about that. So he had to be a little coy about it, a little sneaky about it. He had to be a little hidden and deceptive about it. But now, let's be honest, most Americans, not this audience, but I'm saying many Americans, most Americans, we don't have much of a memory. We're known for not having much of a memory and for remembering the past. We forget very easily, very quickly. Now, 24 years later, it's like ancient history, 9/11. Obama is the one that's putting all of this muscle and weight behind Mamdani. And what's he going to get with Mamdani? They want to invite Hamas into New York. They want to arrest Netanyahu if he should even set foot in New York. They want now to, quote unquote, globalize the Intifada. This is all Obama. Obama wants not just to communize America, he wants to Islamize America. And what is now very clear, and Mamdani is their vessel now, the Marxist wing, the radical socialist wing of the Democratic Party is now the mainstream of the Democratic Party. And it is increasingly, virulently anti-Semitic. It is anti-Jewish. It is anti-Israel. It is anti-white. It is anti-Christian. It is anti-American. This is all Obama. And again, to their credit, this has always been the great strength of the Muslims. I'm sorry, but I have to call it the way I see it. Let's not deceive ourselves. Look, they chased us out of Afghanistan, man. They held out for 20 years like it was nothing. Fighting in these caves and mountains. We never lost a battle. We won every single battle, but we're an impatient people and out we went. And the Taliban are now back. So what I'm saying is, look at the Muslims. They play the long game. They played the long game in Britain. They came in bit by bit, by bit, by bit, and they get one mayor here, one mayor there, someone on the city council there, a couple of members in parliament, and 25, 30 years later, you look around, you're like, oh my God, everybody's wearing a burqa, as Suzanne called from Gloucester. I don't recognize this city anymore. And then suddenly you're hearing the Muslim call to prayer, and there are literally mosques everywhere. You should see the videos. You think Paris is bad. You got to see London. The crowds for the prayers are overflowing onto the streets, and they're blocking traffic as they kneel and pray. This is London. Increasingly, this is Manchester. This is Birmingham. I could go on and on. Now, it's starting here. It's Dearborn. It's Minneapolis. It's already starting in New York. It's starting here in Boston. So the Muslims play the long game. We don't play the long game. We play the short game. Now, everything now. So you're completely right, Jimmy. So they know he's their Trojan horse. And I got to stress this again and again. No disrespect to St. Louis. I'm just picking St. Louis out of a hat, okay? Or Milwaukee, or they're wonderful. I went to Milwaukee, loved Milwaukee. I've never been to St. Louis, but what I'm saying is I've been to Charlotte, for example. Charlotte's a very nice city. I mean, what I'm saying is they're nice cities, but they're not New York. They don't have the population of New York. The media is based in New York. Whatever you think about it, I'm just stating it's the cultural center of America. It's the financial center of America. Wall Street is in New York. It's one of the biggest cities in the world. It's right up there, whether we like it or not. It's up there with London, with Paris, with Moscow, with Berlin, with Tokyo, with Toronto. There's about 10, we call them almost city-states. They got so much economic, cultural influence and so many people that they're almost like countries in and of themselves. New York is one of them. They're on the verge of taking New York. They've got Boston. They've got Chicago. They've got Los Angeles. Whatever we think of Los Angeles is the powerhouse of the West Coast. They've got San Francisco. They've got Portland. They've got Seattle. Now, they still don't have much of the interior. That's our country. That's where we're still very strong. But those are some big cities, man. And that's, again, I go back to my opening monologue. That's what Trump's inner circle is starting to realize. There's a communist insurgency rising up right in front of our eyes. And Mamdani is now going to be the spark that really launches it. And so you have a confederacy. It's a confederacy of communist cities that are now going to wage ceaseless insurrection and opposition to Trump. And they're willing to go violent. They're willing to take it to the streets. And look at Mamdani. Here, I'll play you the cut. He's in bed with Hamas. Hamas. That's not a debating technique to attack a guy. He is willing to side with people who slaughter and butcher men, women, elderly, innocent civilians, you name it. You don't put a sociopath like this guy on a freaking school board. Never mind the mayor of New York. And by the way, I'm just stating a fact. There is a massive Jewish population in New York. And so, well, Jeff, why is that relevant? Because now you're going to have massive strife. You think the Jews are just going to sit there and take it? As this guy radicalizes and radicalizes and radicalizes and pushes his anti-Semitism and brings in all of these rabid, militant Islamists and pro-Palestinians? So what do you think you're going to have? You think the Jews are just going to sit back and allow them to destroy their neighborhoods and chase them out of New York City? So you're going to see religious strife, ethnic strife, racial strife, civil strife, and that's what Obama wants. To sow chaos and division, to destroy us from within. It goes all the way back to Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. And again, full circle about godlessness and Satanism and how communism is ultimately satanic. In Rules for Radicals, the book, Saul Alinsky literally dedicates the book to quote Lucifer, Satan, the devil, saying he was the first community organizer. So this is their plan. And they're methodical, they're patient, they're relentless, and they just keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. And our side either doesn't want to confront it, or feels uncomfortable, or finds it too stressful, or would rather just ignore it. And before you know it, it's too late. So how many more cities have to fall before we look around and say, uh-oh, we're surrounded? The time to strike back is now. That's why I'm urging President Trump, get your ducks in a row, invoke the Insurrection Act. Because the deeper we go down this path, the harder it's going to be to come back. Jimmy, agree, disagree? Final word to you.
Osman's going to be next with this communist mayor.
You're right. Well, look, Boston already is, to me, she's destroying it right in front of our eyes. And she's also now making an alliance with Islamists. So it's the green as in the color of Islam, and red, the color of communism. It is the red-green alliance. That is now the alliance that's the basis of the Democratic Party, and it's the basis now of a lot of these Marxist communist mayors that we're seeing now come to power. So you're right, Jimmy. This is going to come to Boston as well. No, it's coming to Boston. It's already here. Jimmy, thank you very much for that call, as always. Marilyn in Norwood. Thanks for holding, Marilyn, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I have a few comments, and then I will hang up. But I must tell you, the two women that called, Laura and the other lady, they made some very important points. I think they both deserve the award on Friday for outstanding call. The first thing is, I listened to part of Mondami's interview on Fox yesterday afternoon, and I'm not sure if I misheard or if he misstated, or if this was intentional. But the New York State Assembly profile of him mentions that he came to this country at age 7, although he stated to the Fox interviewer that he came at age 4. So I found that an interesting discrepancy. So I'm thinking, is he prone to lying a lot? Number one. Number two, what is the administration going to do, if any, to ensure integrity of voting in New York City? Does New York City also have the mail-in ballots? Because that, this kind of, all these loopholes and irregularities and lack of accurate monitoring, is there a way that they can, Elon Musk, through that company Palantir, can they check to see who's living and who's dead now as residents of New York City to ensure that some people are not voting that are dead, just as they did in the 1960s in Chicago for the Kennedy presidency? Because it was a huge study that came out of the University of Chicago. I remember learning about this in school around 68 or so, where the scholars discovered that close to 8,000 or 10,000 people had voted in favor of Kennedy, which is how Nixon came to lose, at least in that area. So that's another thing. Also, there needs to be a law, at least at the New York State level, if this can be done. No one without experience. I do not consider 4 years of legislative experience without work experience to be sufficient for anyone anywhere in the United States to run as mayor or be elected as mayor of a major city. I mean, New York City is akin to a country. It's larger in population base than many, many countries. He is not qualified for this type of decision making. And I'm not sure if Kathy Hochul, I know that she outwardly supports him, but privately I would think, she's a intelligent woman, whether you agree or disagree with her positions. I can't imagine that she is enthusiastic about his arrival on the scene. And last and equally important, the Quran, I have not read it its entirety, but my understanding is that the vision of the future is that the entire world will become Islam.
Bingo. That's literally the goal of the Quran. The Quran says that ultimately is the goal of Islam is to create a world Muslim empire. That's the goal. A global caliphate in which the entire world is under Islamic law, Quranic law, Sharia law. And literally, Islam means submission. That's what it means. Submission. Submission to what? Submission to Allah. And who has given us Allah's laws or his commandments? It's Muhammad, as expressed in the Quran. So that's the driving mission of most devout Muslims. And that's Mamdani. Now, look, just very quickly, Marilyn, you're right. They should be checking those ballots. But what you're seeing now play out in New York is the death knell of the establishment Democratic Party. That's who Andrew Cuomo represents, the old guard. So it's really a Democrat civil war. It's a Democrat political civil war between this rising socialist communist wing, this neo-Marxist wing, if you want to call it, and these old school, old style liberal Democrats, these machine Democrats, and their days are done. And you can see that's why Mamdani bragged at a recent rally. He said, our moment is now. We're going to crush Cuomo, and that's going to be the end of the establishment Democratic Party. So if there is corruption, the Democrats will have no one else to blame but themselves, voter corruption, because they set the stage. What they've done now is they created a Frankenstein's monster, and they thought they could control it. And now they're getting devoured by Frankenstein. That's literally what's happening right now. Marilyn, thank you so much for that call. Alex in Queens, New York. Thanks for holding, Alex, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Speaking as a lifelong New York Jew, unfortunately, I have to say there are going to be probably not an insignificant number of fellows who are going to vote for this fool.
Really?
And unfortunately, you would think with the Nuremberg rallies in the streets after October 7th, Jews would have learned their lesson. And
oh, my God. Alex, can you please do me a favor? Please. I'm up against a hard break. This is such an important call. All right. Mamdani rising. Tonight is the final televised debate between Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa for the New York mayor's race. Privately now, Trump and his inner circle have already accepted the fact or resigned to the fact that Mamdani will win and apparently win in a landslide. And they are now facing the prospect of a communist insurgency, political insurgency, led by Mamdani in an alliance with Boston, Chicago, L.A., Portland, and other states that are governed by either Marxists or far leftists. Alex is a Jewish American calling us from Queens, New York, and mind-blowing, I have to say, mind-blowing, saying that he knows or has Jewish friends or knows Jewish people that actually will vote for the pro-Hamas anti-Semite Mamdani. Alex, please, thank you for holding. I appreciate it. Please pick up where you left off. Now, why are these Jewish Democrats, why are they willing to vote for Mamdani? I mean, if they're Democrats, they can vote for Andrew Cuomo. So why would they be willing to vote for an obvious Jew hater like Mamdani?
Because they're on the plantation, so to speak. That's traditionally what they've done, and it's been decreasing steadily over the years. But if what happened with the Nuremberg rallies in the streets of the country and the world after October 7th didn't convince them to have a massive exodus from the Democratic Party, Chuck Schumer, gutless Schumer, and also, you know, Jews are overrepresented in a lot of good things and great things, but unfortunately some bad things too. And I don't think that they should be covered up for. They should be called out by our fellow Jews. And unfortunately, they don't seem to be well enough. And it should have happened. There's no reason why you should have any faith anymore in voting for Democratic candidates.
Alex, I don't mean to press the point. I hear what you're saying. You're making a lot of sense. But in this race, as you know better than I do, you've got two Democrats, right, and a Republican on the ballot. I'm not a big fan of Andrew Cuomo. I think he was a horrible governor. I think the man is corrupt to the bone. But to give him his due, he doesn't hate the Jews. You know, I mean, I'm not saying he's great on Israel or he's not, but he's not an anti-Semite. He's just not. So if you're, say, a liberal New Yorker or a liberal Jewish New Yorker or a Jewish Democrat, okay, you want to vote for the Democratic Party, but why vote for Mamdani? Why don't you just vote for Cuomo? I thought, okay, maybe the Jews won't defect, a lot of Jewish voters won't defect from the Democrats completely and vote for, say, Curtis Sliwa. But Alex, they've got a Democrat alternative in Cuomo. So why aren't they going to vote for Cuomo, or at least some of them? Why are they willing to go for someone who's openly pro-Hamas and calls for globalizing the Intifada? I mean, that's what I don't get, Alex. What's your insight on that?
They're sad, sick, suicidal fools.
Alex, do they know about Mamdani's views on Jews? I don't just mean Israel, but his views on Jews, how he doesn't like them, how he hates them, how he wants to tax them, how he wants to drive them out of New York. Are they aware of this and they just don't care? Or are some of them just ignorant?
I'm not sure, but I'll say this much. Unfortunately, the demographic of the people who have left New York and passed away were the Giuliani voters and the Bloomberg voters, and unfortunately, I guess de Blasio also to some degree. I remember when Obama stopped weapons transfers to Israel, and Michael Bloomberg flew into Israel and supported Israel. But, the Jews don't have guns. He could have paid for guns for every single Jew in America. So when the mob comes looking for the Jews, are they going to be able to defend themselves? Question.
Alex, please don't be a stranger. Call again. Really good, very informative call. Very insightful call. Well, there you have it. I mean, well, look, Bernie Sanders, technically is Jewish. To me, he's a self-hating Jew, but he is technically Jewish. Big backer of Mamdani. George Soros, again, a man technically Jewish, but literally sold out fellow Jews in Hungary to the Nazis. Another self-hating Jew, backing Mamdani. But, to me, those are, I thought, rarities, exceptions. I'm telling you, they're going to regret it. They're going to rue the day. I think New Yorkers will rue the day. But Mamdani in particular. Look, it's like voting, you're a Catholic, and you're voting for someone who's vowing to drive all the Catholics out of your city. Or say you're of Irish descent or Italian descent, or I'm just picking any descent. And you've got a mayoral candidate who vows to drive all the Italians or Italian Americans or Irish Americans out of the city. You're committing suicide. Why would you vote for this person? So anyway, but look, that's liberalism is a mental disorder. Okay, let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Will President Trump wait for the results of the mayoral election to send the National Guard to New York? A, yes. B, no. Currently, right now, it's 60% yes. Actually, 60.4 if you want to get technical. 39.6% no. Basically, it's 60-40. I think he's going to wait. I think he doesn't want to be open to the criticism of, being a quote-unquote dictator or a tyrant or, being an authoritarian. So he's going to wait till they vote in this clown Mamdani, this communist clown. And once, he starts wreaking havoc and destruction, and it's going to happen fast, then I think Trump's going to seize the moment and send in the National Guard and invoke the Insurrection Act. But again, that's me. I want to hear from you. A, yes. Will Trump wait for the results of the election, the mayoral election, to send the National Guard to New York? A, yes, B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. I'm very active on X. My handle, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Okay, before I go to the blazing phone lines, this is from Tristan on Messenger, and he makes a superb point. Again, best audience in the business. Jeff, you're like a freaking tape. I know, but it's true. I don't know what else to tell you. So, this is what Tristan writes, and it's very true. And it's kind of been neglected in the discussion of the rise of Mamdani and really now the Communist Democrat Party. That's what we're watching in front of our eyes. Jeff, there is a key demographic of Mamdani supporters that aren't being mentioned, and that is the LGBTQ community. As you are no doubt aware, New York has a large, vibrant LGBT community, many of whom view Mamdani as their proverbial savior. With police defunded and or disbanded altogether, and the full implementation of Sharia law, who are they going to call as they're being dragged to the tops of buildings only to be thrown off? In pop cultural parlance, the chickens are literally throwing their support behind Colonel Sanders. No, it's true. Look, he wants to defund the police. He wants to send social workers, I'm not making this up, to 911 calls. Not just domestic violence or, like this is what they're pushing in Minneapolis. No. To any 911 call, send in social workers. He wants to abolish prisons. The guy's crazy. The guy's crazy. You don't get crazier than this guy. And, he wants to eventually impose Sharia law. Now, by the way, you need Mamdani. Like what, Andrew Cuomo won't protect the LGBTQ community? I'm not a fan of Cuomo. I'm just saying. Curtis Sliwa won't protect the LGBTQ community? Like, you need Mamdani? So think about it. You're going to go in bed with a Hamas supporter, an open Hamas supporter. And what does Hamas do in Gaza? They slaughter gays and lesbians. Never mind transgender people. They throw you off of rooftops and they slaughter you. And this is the guy you're going to be voting for? Really, Bill in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
So there's two problems here, two big problems. One is the good guys need stronger candidates who are better, more skilled candidates who are naturally appealing, who have charisma. And much as I applaud Curtis Sliwa, I don't know the guy, but I'm getting the impression, I haven't paid attention to the details, but I get the impression he's not the strongest candidate in the world. You look at people like Ronald Reagan, or I hate to say it, Bill Clinton, who had natural charisma, and even Giuliani, who are great talking in front of the cameras. And you look at this guy Mamdani, he smiles all the time, and to the low information voters, he's appealing. If that's all they know about him is, oh, he looks good, and he's from my party, so I'm going to happily vote for him. That's how he's getting away with it. But there's a second problem. Besides the lack of strong enough candidates on the good guy side, there's too many candidates on the good guys side, and they split the vote. so that the bad guy can win with less than 50% of the vote. And in a situation like this, when you got several good guys running in a primary, the smart thing to do for the leadership is to say, get all the good guys together. Come on. You guys need to figure out which of you is the strongest, most skilled, and charismatic candidate. And the rest of you need to drop out and endorse him or her so that we don't split the vote.
Bill, I think you're bang on both points. Really, I would say bang, bang. I can only add to what you're saying. Look, again, I'm old school. I'm an American to my core. If you win a primary, you win the primary, and you should be that party's candidate. You win it fair and square, and from everything I read, I don't like the guy. I can't stand the guy. But, Mamdani beat Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary. He beat him straight up. So I'm looking at this race, and I'm like, this really should be a two-person race. Curtis Sliwa won the primary, and I agree with you. You could have people that are more charismatic than Curtis Sliwa, yes, who speak better in front of cameras or have a higher profile or more notoriety, yes. But what I'm saying is Curtis Sliwa ran for the Republican primary, the Republican nomination. He won. Mamdani and Cuomo fought it out for the Democratic nomination. Mamdani won. So this should be, in my view, a Curtis Sliwa-Mamdani race. And by the way, Sliwa is no hard right conservative. He's quite socially liberal. Honestly, he's quite moderate. He's tough on crime, which is what you need. And he's not going to chase business out of New York. And he's going to really tackle inflation. So on bread and butter issues, he's excellent. But, this guy is he's no Jeff Kuhner. Let's put it this way, okay? So what I'm saying is he's a very moderate, Republican that in the mold of Giuliani. And so, with the right backing, the right support in a one-on-one race, he could beat Mamdani. Or at least it would be a dead heat. But the problem is Cuomo. He got his head handed to him by Mamdani in the primary. And like a sore loser, now he's running as a quote-unquote independent. And he's the guy that's now splitting the vote. And he's corrupt. He's a disgraced former governor. He literally killed old people in these nursing homes. So he's splitting the anti-Mamdani vote. He's demoralizing the anti-Mamdani forces because they're like, this is really our alternative? Because he's blunted Sliwa. I got to tell you, we may have Mike, we may even do a poll question on this. Not today, but maybe in the future. Should I change my moniker? No, really, I want to ask all of you, seriously. Because, cleaning up the liberal bull, that's what I had when I first came here, right? That was the moniker I essentially gave myself 13 years ago. It's no longer liberal. It's commie. It really should be cleaning up the communist bull, not the liberal bull. Because that's what the Democrats have become. They become a communist Marxist party. At a bare minimum, it should be cleaning up the socialist bull. So maybe cleaning up the liberal bull, I got to update it with the times. I'm throwing it out there. 617-266-6868. Okay, I want to go to Kim in New Hampshire, and all the other calls, the phone lines are jammed. But before I do, just very quickly, this was Mamdani yesterday on Fox with Martha McCallum. Now, she asks him a point-blank question. It's a very simple question. Will you call for Hamas to lay down their weapons, i.e. disarm, and leave the political leadership in Gaza as is laid out in the peace deal that was signed between Israel, Hamas, and really the region? Listen now to Mamdani. Listen to his non-answer. Roll cut, and by the way, all with a smile on his face. That sleazy, slimy smile. Roll cut 26, Mike.
If you are asked tomorrow night if you give credit to President Trump for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and the return of the 20 living hostages, would you raise your hand?
First I want to say it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And it's an honor to have this opportunity to speak to so many New Yorkers and Americans across the country. And when it comes to the ceasefire, I am thankful and I have hope that it will actually endure and that it will be lasting. And I continue to have concerns because I've seen reports still, just this in the last few days, that 5 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli military. And that's what gives me pause about issuing any kind of praise or celebration at a moment when it is still so in its infancy. And what I will tell you is that in that same moment, it is also one that requires a focus on ensuring that hope, that belief in a better future is one that is emblematic in our policies right here in New York City as well. And that's what we're hoping to lead with.
That was his answer. Like, you're going to say, well, no, Jeff, did he finally get around to that, to answering Hamas, the question about Hamas and disarming? No. You sleazy sleaze bucket, you. That's what I told you, this oily, slippery snake oil salesman. So, no, he doesn't think Hamas should disarm. It's obvious. Nor does he think Hamas should leave the leadership in Gaza. It's obvious. And notice, he goes on about, I'm concerned about the ceasefire. Israel killed 5 Palestinians. Well, what you're not telling the listeners is those 5 quote-unquote Palestinians were terrorists, Hamas terrorists, who were breaching the ceasefire. And the other thing that's broken out, I'm sure most of you know this, and by the way, this was taking place before the interview, is that Hamas, instead of disarming, is going around literally wiping out Palestinians. Again, they're not targeting Jews now. They're targeting Palestinians. And they're executing them. Like the way Jay Jones wants to kill Republicans. 2 bullets to the head. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. They're rounding up opposition Palestinian figures. And they're slaughtering them. Because there's now a potential power vacuum in Gaza. So they want to wipe out all of their Palestinian political rivals. And so it's a bloodbath. Dozens and dozens and dozens of Palestinians have been murdered at point blank range. Really, bullet to the back of the head. Bang, bang. Now, is Mamdani condemning Hamas for that? I mean, I know you don't care about a Jewish life because you're a disgusting anti-Semite, but you claim to love the Palestinians. Allah, 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 Allah. Right? According to you. So why aren't you condemning Hamas when they're slaughtering Palestinians in cold blood? Nothing. 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 And this guy's going to be the mayor of New York? All that's missing is the kafia. I'm telling you, all that's missing, and I'm telling you, it's coming. Forget the American flag. The Palestinian flag, and then the kafia with the Kalashnikov. That's the only thing missing. 617-266-6868. Kim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'd like to talk about that book, the Jungle by Upton Sinclair. I've read it a few times, and I'm actually gonna put it on audio when I get off the phone with you. But are you familiar? You have to be familiar with that book. Yes,
and just for the audience, Kim, just so that they know, Upton Sinclair was what at the time considered a progressive. He's what was called a muckraker, basically an investigative journalist. And he was well known for exposing the corrupt practices of the meatpacking industry in New York and other big cities, but predominantly New York, where they were engaging in very unclean, unsanitary, really not healthy practices. And so by exposing the bad meat that they were selling to people and the unsanitary, dirty meat that they were selling to people, it led to massive public outrage. And it led to the regulation of the meat packing industry to make sure that we have meat that's actually, edible and clean and safe and sanitary. Kim, have I summed it up accurately in your view?
You didn't make it sound as disgusting as it actually was.
Oh, I mean, it's 8:57. It's Thursday morning. I don't want people to throw up their breakfast, but if you want to elaborate, please go ahead. I mean, it really was filthy, but go ahead. Elaborate a little bit, Kim.
Like, milk. They were sold it as milk, and it was, it was, a lot of it was like, to give it the creaminess like milk has, that was ground up cow brains, and so obviously, it was killing kids because because there was poisons in it, and like it
That's
just
right.
It's an excellent book for like to keep.
Yeah, Kim, sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I agree with you. It's an excellent book. It was a groundbreaking book. And by the way, that's what investigative journalists should be doing. That was true investigative journalism. You're really exposing, abuse of power and something that needs to be cleaned up. But what does this have to do with Mamdani in New York, if you don't mind me asking?
Upton Sinclair promoting socialism.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And so I don't really get how was he trying to put socialism in a positive light, because the family that it's all about never actually got the apple. So, and just the socialism today, and just it seems
no, Kim. Look, you're asking a great question. Look, there were many investigative journalists at the time who were socialists or democratic socialists or whatever you want to call them. Upton Sinclair was one of them. But they were also honest, objective journalists. In other words, what he wrote about, and you're right, about, milk and they sold, it was cow brains, and they tried to pass it off as milk, or that the meat was so infected and so toxic that it literally killed children. So what he wrote about was completely accurate and true. In other words, Upton Sinclair was a man of the left. There's no question. But he was also, first and foremost, an objective journalist. And so he was committed to objective journalism. That's not the media today. The media today are socialist propagandists. They're not telling us the truth. They're lying in the name of their ideology. And you look at, and remember, when Upton Sinclair wrote, this was, the early 1900s. Well, we've tried now communism. We've tried Marxism. In the early 1900s, not one country had fallen to communism. In 1917, the Bolsheviks come to power. And then from that point, other countries start to have communist regimes as well. And it spreads all over the world. So when I'm looking at a Mamdani as an example, it's not Upton Sinclair in 1904 or 1905 writing about the disgusting, filthy conditions in the dairy industry and the meatpacking industry. We're talking now about the Bolshevik Revolution, the Maoist Revolution in China, Fidel Castro, North Korea, Venezuela, communism in Eastern Europe, communism in Africa, communism in Latin America, communism in Asia. This has been tried dozens and dozens and dozens of times in dozens and dozens of different countries on different continents. And every time it has led to genocide, mass murder, and absolute misery and disaster. So in a way, Upton Sinclair, maybe was naive about socialism, but to be fair to him, there hadn't been one communist revolution yet. He didn't see with his own eyes, ooh, this is where my ideas may lead to. Mamdani doesn't have that excuse. In fact, to be honest with you, Kim, I think it's the exact opposite. I think he knows exactly where communism leads. And I think that's why he's a communist. That's, to me, I think it's clear. No, he wants to destroy New York. He's not there because he wants to improve the lives of New Yorkers. I believe he's clearly a stealth jihadist. He's a Marxist, a militant Muslim. That's what he is. And for the Muslim world, especially the militant Muslim world, remember, they launched their attack on 9/11. Now they're going to bring New York. You put Mamdani in power, he's going to do a hell of a lot more damage in the long term than 9/11 did on that day. I'm not downplaying 3,000 dead. 3,000 dead is an unbelievable death toll. It's sickening. It's the greatest terrorist attack on American soil ever. But he is not just going to topple the Twin Towers. He's going to topple all of New York. Figuratively, obviously. He is going to bring New York to its knees. He is going to conquer and destroy the financial epicenter of the United States. This is going to be one of the greatest victories for radical Islam in its history. So he is a Marxist because he knows it destroys. He knows it spreads misery. And that's exactly what his intention is. And that's why he's got that sociopathic, honestly, he's like a villain out of Batman. He reminds me of the Joker, you know, who's always laughing. All that's missing is the makeup on his face. So his goal, make no mistake about it, is to subvert New York because ultimately, remember, Bernie Sanders vacationed in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. He vacationed there. Who vacationed in the Soviet Union? He was drinking vodka during his honeymoon. Okay, he honeymooned in the Soviet Union. He was drinking vodka with communist comrades, singing communist songs about the Soviet motherland in a Russian. That's Bernie. That's Bolshevik Bernie Sanders. AOC is an open admirer of Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez. She thinks what Maduro is doing in Venezuela should be emulated here in the United States, that it's a great thing. She wants to import Chavismo. So you ask her, would you like New York to become Caracas? Yes. Those are the people backing Mamdani. Those are the people now in control of the Democratic Party. So I look at someone like Mamdani and I'm like, no, he has no illusions. He's not naive. He's not ignorant. He's never held a job outside of being an assemblyman. He's got no resume, no experience, no qualifications. Honest to God, this guy couldn't run a lemonade stand. I would not hire him to cut my lawn. He's useless. Do you understand? He's not fit to cut your lawn. You're going to give him the keys to the most important city of the United States? I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, this is a nightmare. I'm slapping myself. Somebody wake me up here. Okay, Jeff, wake up. Come on. It's time to go to work now. Let's go, Jeff. I'm like, oh my God, you're not going to believe the dream I just had. So, okay. If New Yorkers, you want communism, well, now you're going to get it good and hard. Ronnie in Boston. Thanks for holding, Ronnie, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Ronnie, how are you, buddy?
Good. Hey, quick question, Jeff. Name the most strong, masculine Democrat man you can think of right now off the top of your head. Go.
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz. At my point exactly. That's as masculine as it gets. Tim Walz, Zoran Mamdani, Roy Jones. You know what I mean? The simpy, skinny little, and this is my point, Jeff. The reason Democrats have Mamdani is because the Democrat Party has become a feminist majority party. When you look at the candidates they're running, whether it's Kathy Porter or Abigail Spanberger, when you look at the squad, when you look at Nancy Pelosi, when you look at Liz Warren, the leadership of the Democrat Party is overwhelmingly becoming more and more feminist. And men like Mamdani are the only kind of quote unquote men that can pass their feminist litmus test. And they're never gonna win nationally like this, Jeff. When you look at the No Kings protest this weekend, it's going to be all women. When you look at a lot of these ICE facilities being targeted, it's majority feminist women that are out there, because feminists are the only voting bloc left in the Democrat Party that hasn't been peeled away by Trump and the Republicans. Whites, blacks, Hispanics, men, Asians, all leaving the party in droves, and the only holdouts left are radical feminist women. Why do you think Chuck Schumer won't open the government, Jeff? Because a feminist will primary him and whoop his ass if he does vote to open it. So, I mean, Chuck Schumer, the most senior, most powerful man in the Democrat Party, is being held hostage by a feminist, and thereby extension, the whole country. And when you look at Mamdani, I mean, he took Kathy Hochul's endorsement, but wouldn't endorse her in return, that arrogant SOB. So senior Democrat leadership's not going to work with them. Republicans aren't going to work with them. And New York is going to go through the single greatest decline under one leader that it's ever experienced in the history of the city of New York. I mean, it's just the Democrats are a feminist party now, Jeff. Change my mind.
I can't, because you're right. You're completely right. Ronnie, did you see that stunt that Mamdani pulled again with that sleazy smile, where he was going on about he was going to weight lift his own weight? And I think it was like 135 pounds, and he was trying to bench press it. And that fraud obviously couldn't come close to bench pressing 135 pounds. So he had all these people around him basically helping him lift that bar. And even with all these people lifting the bar for him, his hands were like spaghetti. His arms were like spaghetti. Like he just, it's like his, like he couldn't keep control of his arms. And, he's like, I'm doing it. And you could tell there's like 4 or 5 people lifting it for him. He's such a fraud. I mean, it's so obvious on everything he says, everything he does. Ronnie, I've got to ask you, because you're right. Why are feminists, and let's be even more blunt about it, white, predominantly suburban, liberal feminist women, why are they now the heart and soul of the Democratic Party? What is it about the Democrats that they just won't leave that party? What's your theory?
Simple, Jeff. They can't land a man. They're all man-hating feminists. These are the feminists that, upload, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of videos on TikTok about how white men are the cisgendered gatekeepers of the patriarchy and men are pigs and I'd rather choose the bear. And these are women that have hit their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and they've lived a completely hedonistic feminist life. The feminist attitude on sex is whatever, whenever. And so they have insane high body counts. They're covered in tattoos. They're covered in multicolored hair. They're the kind of woman that no quality man worth having wants. And so they're single with nothing to do but protest and hate on men and become radical political zealots. Like in the modern day, Jeff, most men worth having view a feminist as an existential threat to their feelings, their finances, and their family, and they avoid them by any means necessary. They don't want to interact with them at work. They don't want to date them. They don't want any part of them. And so all of these, women, these man-hating feminists that have just gone out of their way to crap all over men, the only thing they have left in their life is politics. That's it.
Ronnie, 10 seconds. Would you ever date AOC?
Oh, my hell no.
I think you just proved your case, Ronnie. Let me ask all the men out there. Would you ever date AOC? 617-266-6868 is the number. Lisa on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, I'm so glad to go now because I almost had to leave the line. I just wanted to commend you for dismantling those really ugly narratives earlier this morning about the Talmudic connection conspiracy theory. You have a way of doing it with grace, kudos, and a little shot of humor, and it's much appreciated.
Oh, thank you,
so
Lisa.
I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, I'm just curious. Are you as concerned about Mamdani as Trump is, as his inner circle is, as frankly so many New Yorkers are? Or do you think he's just going to be a flash in the pan? Yeah, he'll get elected, but he'll fizzle and the New Yorkers will turn on him and he'll just be a one-term, yeah, he'll be a bad mayor, but basically he'll be just a one-term loser? Or do you think this man is determined to really destroy and bring New York down?
Sure. Well, to that end, I wanted to remember, I also wanted to thank you for your commentary earlier because I wish I had like a pipe dream while I was listening on the commute. What I wouldn't give to have you go toe to toe with the likes of, I'm just going to, like the Nick Fuenteses of the world that are gaining popularity and they always show off about how quick on their feet they are. And I was like, the Boston's communism bulldozer would wipe the floor clean with any of them. And to your question about
they hate me.
Mamdani,
By the way, Lisa, those, I think the Groypers, I think that's what they're called. Well, anyway, Nick Fuentes in particular can't stand me. So that's why when Bill and Sudbury one time called and said, you know, the Nazis love you. And I'm like, well, can you name me one? First time he couldn't name one. The second time, Nick Fuentes. And I'm like, well, Fuentes can't stand my guts. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. Please, go ahead, Lisa.
to your point about New York, I think it's very frightening, especially that there are still liberal Jewish people, like the other caller said, that will continue to, I mean, that's crazy. It's kind of frightening. I'm afraid that we could have, God forbid, Manchester, England happen there. And what's he going to do? Fake caring, And the other thing, and I won't take longer, you mentioned the other day about the general brigadier in Oregon who is basically, disavowing. He wants to protect the protesters.
That's right. That's right. It's insubordination. Yeah, insubordination. He will not obey an order from Trump to protect federal buildings. He says he will protect Antifa.
Right. So just to tie that together with Mamdani, what are we going to do if more of Mamdani's take over in other cities, and you already have these pro-Antifa agents in the police and, God forbid, ICE, it's pretty, how is he going to root out that? I know, and you always say you have an ear with the administration, so grateful for that too.
Well, Lisa, look, this is why Trump is not, how do I say this? He wants to invoke the Insurrection Act, but for him, he's a chess player and he wants to play his moves right. And so, because once he invokes the Insurrection Act, this is when he's going to break the Democratic Party. And he's going to go in big. He's going to go in heavy. He's going to send troops into New York because Mamdani is going to do exactly what they're doing in Portland. He's going to send them to Chicago, obviously Portland, LA. He's going to hit them all. And there's going to be massive resistance, violent resistance. They're going to repeat the riots of 2020. This is what AOC, Bernie, Mamdani, Brandon Johnson, Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, those idiots up in Portland, that's their long-term plan. And they want to then say, you see, this is what Trump has done to our country. The cities are burning. There are riots everywhere. And they think they can ride this sort of internal chaos. And I don't want to say civil war, but almost civil war. This violence, these cities burning and looting and bloodshed, and they want to ride that to victory in the midterms. Trump is going to make the midterms a referendum on the radical Democrats and how they want to destroy the cities and protect illegal aliens at all costs, to the point of even waging an insurrection and defying federal authority, federal law, the federal government. And so Trump is like, he's moving his pieces, waiting for the Democrats to move theirs, and then he's going to go for the checkmate. And so what he's just waiting for now is for there to be enough chaos and havoc and violence and disorder in major cities like New York that the American public, by a decisive majority, are going to say, invoke the Insurrection Act. We got your back. If he does it now, his fear is there's still not enough support because the media is not reporting what's happening. So many people don't quite understand what it's really like. You get a guy like Mamdani, you just give him a couple months in office, and I'm telling you, New Yorkers are going to be begging for federal troops. So Trump is a chess player. And I mean, I play chess as well. I mean, I'm not that good at it, but I do play chess. The key to chess is patience. Okay, just to let everybody know, tonight is, I believe, the final debate between Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and the Republican nominee, Curtis Sliwa. So it should be a lively affair. I don't know if Fox is going to carry it live or Newsmax. But if they are, obviously I'd prefer to watch Newsmax than Fox. But anyway, if Newsmax is carrying it, I'll watch it there. If Fox is carrying it and Newsmax isn't, I'll watch it on Fox. But I hope they carry it. I will watch it if I can. If not, well, too bad. But if they are carrying it, I'm going to watch it. I think it's going to be an interesting debate. Cuomo's going to have to go for the knockout. Sliwa's going to have to go for the knockout. And let's see how Mamdani handles himself. We shall see. 617-266-6868. Heather in Rockland. You've been holding patiently, Heather. Thank you and welcome.
Hey, Jeffrey. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Walking to work, walking to my office now. So I just wanted to tell you a little story, and answer your questions that you asked. So I do CrossFit, and I was getting ready at the gym. I get ready, and I play you as I get ready at the gym. And one of the girls I do CrossFit with, she's like, obviously was listening to you as well, because I have you like on speaker as I was listening. And she's like, this stuff is so crazy. And then I get on my little high horse and I go, anybody who votes for him gets exactly what they deserve. And she made kind of a good point. She's like, yeah, but unfortunately, if the other people that don't vote for him still have to deal with it. And I said, you make a very good point. I said, I don't live in Boston, but I have to endure the nonsense of Lou every time I go to work in Boston. So I just wanted to tell you that story. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think Trump should wait until that idiot, if he does get in, which I'm sure it looks like he's getting in, I think he should wait until he gets in and not do the Insurrection Act until he gets in. I think that way he'll have a good reason. I think now's a little too soon. I think they should wait until the chaos gets out of control and then have Trump go in. That's kind of what I think.
Heather, I think that's the plan. I think, or at least for Trump, that's the plan. I know Miller wants him to move quicker, more proactive, be more aggressive, Stephen Miller. But I think Trump, I think he's pretty much on your wavelength. Not that he doesn't want to move. He'd like to move as quickly as possible. But he's, do I have the support? Will I keep, can you keep the support? So unfortunately, maybe things have to get worse before they start getting better. And with Mamdani, the moment this guy's elected, you just give it a couple of weeks, a month tops, and it's going to get worse. The only question is how bad and how fast. Heather, thank you very much for that call. And look, that's why in the end, I'm for sending in federal troops. Because, say I lived in New York, or God forbid you lived in New York. I mean, I'll be like, hey, I know people who voted for him deserve what they get. but I didn't vote for him. Like, why do I deserve, no police, criminals running, running wild, businesses being shut down, most likely me losing my job, taxes going through the roof, food lines at grocery stores. I could go on and on. Like, what did I do to deserve this? And you're right. Your point about Boston is superb. I didn't vote for Michelle Wu. I never would vote for Michelle Wu. But I got to live with the consequences of the fact that she's the mayor of Boston. So that's why in the end, I side on you have to help everybody, even if they're going to elect Mamdani. And Trump, I think, will do that. He will have no choice. He will invoke the Insurrection Act and basically clean up that mess. But it's going to be a mess. Dan in North Andover. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Jeff Kuhner, Triple C. You know what the Triple C is, Jeff?
No, just the way you say it is very funny.
Conquering the communist crap.
Dan, I like that.
All right. Hey, Jeff, days like today are the days that I tune in every day. The reason why I tune in every day, because you are schooling us on what's going on in the world and what radical Muslim, extremists are doing all over the world, and what communism has done all over the world. And, the average person, in this country, the average person doesn't have a clue. So we need people like you, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Dan, what do you make of Mamdani? Do you think, is he going to be the tip of the spear of this communist insurgency, political insurgency in these cities from, New York to Chicago to Boston to Portland?
I mean, look what's happened in London. Right? Look what happened in Manchester, England. It's awful, Jeff. And I was in Budapest, Hungary this year. I know you were in Croatia this year. What are the people over there saying? They're all like, what are you guys, crazy? We had communism. It was awful. Why would you want to vote in communism?
Dan, that's exactly the whole vacation when I was in Croatia. That's all every Croatian told me and my son. They're happy that Trump won, don't get me wrong, but they're looking at all these cities and they just shake their heads and they're like, they don't know what happened to us here. Why would you vote for this? They're how do I say this? They're befuddled. They're shaking their heads in utter disbelief. Dan, do you think this communist movement has legs in America? Or do you think Americans will wake up quickly and reject it?
Jeff, the scary thing is, right? Look what's happening in Portland, Oregon. Look what's happening in Chicago, where Trump and normal people want to take back their cities. They want some semblance of order and law, lawfulness. And people are fighting it, Jeff. They're fighting it like it's bad. I don't know. It's scary.
Dan, I'm with you. It is scary. It really is. Dan, thank you very much for that call. And look, I think a part of it, it's not everything, but I think a part of it is you're starting to see now the effects, the consequences of the last, I'd say 20, 25, 30 years, the indoctrination, the leftist brainwashing, the critical race theory, all of this now that you've been seeing in the public schools, elementary, high school, colleges, and they love Mamdani. Mamdani reminds them of their professors or their teachers. It's like in Boston. They love Michelle Wu. How could you like her? But they love Michelle Wu. I could go on and on. In L.A., they love Karen Bass. Literally, L.A. burned under her. And there wasn't any freaking water in the fire hydrants. There was no water. And, no, they still like Karen Bass. So I think you're starting to see now the 25, 30 years of constant brainwashing and indoctrination. And this is now what we're producing in terms of leaders in the Democratic Party, but also voters. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, from the People's Republic, where Mondami would be elected dictator if there was an election. Jeff, I'm sorry I have to be like stream of consciousness, but you made me think of so many things. Number one, when you said this guy couldn't run a lemonade stand, that's what prompted me to call. Think about this. What is his qualifications? You already said he has none. He was a spoiled rich guy who basically doesn't like America, doesn't like the American system, and he's fooling people. Number two, rhetorically, Jeff, who is the worst president we've ever had? I'll even say modern history. It's Obama. What was Obama?
See, David, I would say Joe Biden, but you're right, because Joe Biden was Obama's third term. So, yeah, okay, you're right. Obama. I'm sorry, I don't want to quibble. Go. Yes, you're right, David. Go.
Well, really, what was Obama qualified to do? He was just a slick guy being fronted by powerful globalists. Mondami is Obama 2.0. You made the point about the smile. You're exactly right. You never trust a person who's got that fake plastic smile. Two last points, Jeff. What's the single biggest reason that people like this get elected? The answer is apathy. How many people live in New York City? I don't know. I don't have the numbers. I'm going to say many millions. I think it's 6 million, 7 million. How many people vote? I'm not sure, but he probably has a few 100,000 people behind him, and that's what does it. So people get...
David, David, please, I want you to finish your point. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go right back to David in the People's Republic of Brookline. David, you are about to finish your point. I want you to finish it. New York, what is it? Population? It's about 8 million, if I'm give or take. So how many of those will be voting in the mayor's race? Who knows? But your point is, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of voters could put Mamdani into office. It's a well-organized, fanatical minority, well-funded, rabid. These are hardcore globalists, hardcore communists, socialists, a lot of Muslim militants as well, throwing their weight behind him. So really what you're looking at is a minority can take over a major city and bring it to its knees. Please, David, pick up where you left off.
And Jeff, before I say that, the thing with Obama is I say he was the worst because of the destruction, and you didn't even necessarily see it until the years went on, and he was pulling the strings of Brandon. Everybody knows that Biden wasn't the president, but technically I understand when you say he's the worst. But to the point, apathy. You know, Jeff, you make the point all the time. Say what you want about these Democrats. They fight. And think about it. Case in point, I'm sure Josh Kraft is a nice man. I don't know him. But he has unlimited money. Did anybody even know he was running? I mean, that's the best that Boston can do. What kind of fight did he put up? So Mondami, as you say, has this radical following. Several 100,000 people are now going to speak for 8 million due to apathy. And then my final point, and you brought it up earlier, speaking as a Jewish person, it sickens me, Jeff, and I'm sure Arthur and Chestnut Hill would agree with me. The self-hating Jews, it's disgusting. It's a phenomenon that I cannot still understand, but it's real. There will be plenty of Jewish people that will vote for this guy. As far as I'm concerned, they're worse than the radical Muslims. I'd rather have somebody that I understand where they're coming from than somebody who actually pretends to care about something, but they won't stand up and fight for it, Jeff.
David, look, again, I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. I've met self-hating Catholics. I've met self-hating Protestants, evangelicals. So it's not, something just unique to the Jews. I think what is shocking, and this is why someone like me, who's a Gentile, right, who's not Jewish, what stands out is because of the Holocaust, because of what happened to the Jews, under Hitler, and the pogroms that Jews have faced historically throughout, thousands of years, and what poor Israelis have to endure on a regular basis. And so it's that context of, we're not talking about somebody who's, I don't know, pro-Palestinian or whatever, critical of Israel or whatever. You're talking about somebody who's pro-Hamas. You're talking about somebody who's a vicious Jew hater. As like I said earlier, can you imagine someone who, says, I'm going to chase all the Irish out of Boston? Or I'm going to chase all the Catholics out of Boston, or, whatever, take your pick. And they're still going to vote, and the Irish still vote for him? Irish Americans or Catholics still vote for him? And it's just with the background of everything the Jews have suffered, that's why it's doubly shocking. And David, look, your points are excellent as always. Darlene in Revere. Oh, time flies. I'm telling you, this show, I need more time. Darlene, 1 minute. The floor is yours. Go.
A couple different things. It's like this guy is going to make New York the new Dearborn, like Dearborn, Michigan, what's going on over there.
Yes.
And he's a hypocrite because one of the things that he's campaigning on strongly is he's going to make more housing because of the housing shortage. And don't these people realize he makes over $100,000 a year with that seat he has and the council or whatever he is in the city, in City Hall? He's living in low-income housing. These are just a couple of things. I mean, what are these people? They're insane. And
Darlene, he's a multimillionaire who lives in this swanky condo. Like I'm talking, one of these privileged elite condos that has rent control. I swear you can't make this guy up.